Oh, hello. In today's video, we're going to talk about Delta Squad. Now, this box came out a while ago now, at least here in the UK, and I just haven't got around to recording this video because we had balance data slates for Kill Team, I went to a Shatterpoint tournament, things that are a bit more time sensitive. But now we're going to talk about Delta Squad, but before I start, you might reasonably be asking yourself, who on earth are Delta Squad? And this is the second Shatterpoint box that's primarily characters from a video game. So the first one was Adversio Inferno Squad, and they are from the game Battlefront 2, which I've now played the Battlefront 2 campaign and now know who they are. The same cannot be said for these guys. These guys are from Republic Commando, I think it's called. Now, really interestingly, Republic Commando is not canon anymore, but Delta Squad were given a very brief cameo in an episode of The Bad Batch, so technically they're from The Bad Batch as far as Lucasfilm's concerned, right? But that's who Delta Squad are. They were a blink and you miss it cameo in The Bad Batch, and then they yeah, from a video game. So what do we get in the box? We get 4 clones, right? So the primary is RC1138 Boss. The secondary is RC1140 Fixer, and the supports are 2 named clones, Sev and Scorch. Boss brings 9 squad points, Fixer is a 4 cost, and then Sev and Scorch are one of these, two named characters working together to form a 5 cost support. So think Baze and Churrit, Han and Chewie, those kinds of things. And let's get straight into it. So Boss. Boss we'll start with his identity, right? You need to learn I'm a lot scarier than you are. For every 3 damage the unit has, characters in this unit add 1 dice to their attack rolls. For each injured token the unit has, characters in the unit add 3 dice to their attack rolls. Additionally, when a character in this unit wounds an enemy unit after the effect is resolved, refresh 2 force. So this is one of those classic selfish primary identities, but as identities go, it's really good. As selfish identities go. I mean, he has 10 damage, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So optimally, right, if he is on his last activation, not that primaries often get removed from the table, but in theory, if he's on his last activation, he can be adding 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 extra dice. Is that right? Yeah. He can, in theory, be adding 12 extra dice just before you take him off. Now, that's an extreme example, but basically what this means is as the game goes on, unless people go out of their way to not hurt Boss, as the game goes on, Boss is going to become more and more hitty, more and more likely to get to the end of his trees. You also get force back when you wound. I'm not a massive fan of, as I've said before, I'm not a massive fan of get force back when this character wounds, because just to explain it again, I know I've explained it a few times, I find that when you have that ability, you have it on a really killy character, right? Boss, Grievous, whatever it might be, right? And so what you're kind of encouraged to do is to go, right, well, I'm a really killy character. I can put a lot of damage in theory. I'm going to go after this thing that's pretty much healthy, and then you'll leave it alive on 2 wounds, and then you finish it off with something else, and you don't get the force back. Otherwise, you go for something that's nearly dead, and you get your force back, but it feels like a waste because you're like, cool. Oh, you go, I go 5 down my tree, and I do, 7 damage, and then your opponent goes, cool, you only need to do 3 and you don't feel great about it. So I'm not a big fan of those kinds of abilities, but other people like them a lot better than I do, so that's fine. And I'm going to go right to the top of the card. We're going to go to his tactic. Hang tight, trooper, Delta Squad on the way. On our way. There we go. I'm assuming these all sound like video game voice quotes, don't they? At the start of the unit's activation, each allied unit Delta Squad character within 4 may dash. So he's got a Kalani style move for his squad. Okay, I guess you can. Other people will call this an Iden style move, or I suppose, but started off playing as Separatist, so I'm going to call it a Kalani style move, but for his squad. These kinds of abilities are really interesting. I think Boss is only really playable when you're running the Delta Squad box. I think, and we'll get to this, I think the other two elements in his box are far more interesting because they will slot in easily to the greater sort of Republic pool of units. I think Boss, and there is certain comparison to Iden, I think Boss is only really useful when you're running Delta Squad as a thing. Now, this is one of those abilities, like if you draw Boss early, right? So you're deployed nicely in a blob, and you go, Boss, awesome, everybody gets to move. This is going to feel like an extremely powerful ability, right? If unfortunately, if Boss comes up late in your deck, right near the bottom, and you've had to move Sev and Scorch, and you've had to move Fixer out of range, it's going to feel like a less interesting ability, or you're going to be like, oh, I don't want to move these guys too far forward. I want to hang them back because they can get the free dash when Boss. But that way of thinking is faulty. So these kinds of abilities, I always think of them as being really feast or famine, right? And again, I think that as I do more and more of these reviews and I consume more and more content from other people, I don't think everybody necessarily agrees with my take. I don't think that means my take is wrong, but it's my take, and that's what it is. Some people really rate this kind of ability. They really rate it on Iden. They really rate it on Kalani. They think it's amazingly good, and it can be. It will have those games when it feels amazingly good. It absolutely will. But there will also be games when it just feels, because of your deck draw order, where it's like, oh, that's just my 2 pence. Then we've got Delta give me an explosive solution. So this costs 2 force, and then you choose an objective within 3 of an allied clone trooper. So notice it's more generally clone troopers, not just Delta Squad. Within 3 of an allied clone trooper, each allied character within 2 may dash and gain a hunker. Then each unit within 2 of the objective suffers 2 damage and removes any hunkers. It's another thing, and this is going to be a recurring thing with me talking about Boss. It's another thing where I know other people might be keen on this, but I'm really not. He manages to have a great collection of the kinds of abilities that I personally don't rate, right? So Boss only brings 2 force. Granted, he can refresh 2 force if he wounds someone, and maybe you want to bank on that, right? Boss only brings 2 force. He's asking you to spend 2 force to dash off an objective and then do damage, right? So, like, it's very possible that you can use this and you can do the 2 damage and remove hunkers, and that wins you the game. Like, you can say that about any ability. Like, it's possible in the exact right scenario that this does everything you want, right? And it really should be viewed as one of those back pocket, right, abilities where it's like, oh yeah, no, this will come in. There will be scenarios where it comes in. There will even be scenarios where it wins the game. But I just don't think generally it's a good use of 2 force. I don't think generally it's a good ability. There will be situations where it's like, well, if I don't dash this guy off and he eats the 2 damage and he takes 2 damage, then I flip the objective. And when that works, it works. Okay. And then his passive, let's get in there and start breaking things. Whenever he would dash, he may suffer a wound. If you do, you can advance. And then when you would advance, you can suffer 2. And if you do, you can instead reposition. Interesting and very flexible. This guy is really funny because he reads a lot like an Empire character. He can do damage to himself. He's got the dash off an objective and bombard it kind of ability. He feels a lot like he belongs in Empire. I'm not a massive fan of this ability either, although it has to be said, right, I'm putting damage on myself, and then the damage is helping me because I've got the Darth Maul style ability where for every 3 damage I can add a dice to my attack rolls. So it is useful to me to go, well, somebody's given me a dash, I put a damage on myself, I can instead full move, and then when I would full move, I'll put another 2 damage on myself, now I can repo, but also I've got 3 damage on myself, and therefore also I've got the extra dice. So it does let you, I guess, hurt yourself and manage that ability for your identity to try and feed yourself extra dice if you need to take 1, 2, or 3 damage to get to a threshold where you've got a whole set of 3 damage on you. I do get that. I do get that. It doesn't excite me. Yeah. So let's look at his stances. He wants to be in combat, right? He wants to be in combat because wet work, his combat tree, is really powerful. We've seen it on a few characters, that really powerful 2 damage, 1 in a condition, in this case disarm, and then 3 damage, right? So that's that whenever you see that 6 damage on 3, that's what you want to be going for. Okay. So on his wet work side, he can do 6 damage on 3. He's chucking 7 dice in combat natively. And he obviously is going to get those extra dice. Really, really good. Okay. Notice as well on his Vibro Blade, if you get 2 expertise, and you're going to potentially have extra dice as well, but if you get 2 expertise, you're getting a crit and a damage. So you can potentially, just by getting 3 down your tree, right, you can do 7 damage, which is really good. And then you can cop out at 10 if you full tree, right, which is really, really good. Problems with it, you have to get to 4 for a shove, okay. So rapid fire, his shooting focus tree, obviously the numbers of dice are swapped around, so you're better at shooting. It's less damage, we're only going to do 4 on first 3, okay. And we're going to top out at 8, which doesn't feel amazing, but there are some utilities here. You get a shove on 2, whereas on wet work you need to get to 4 to get a single shove, okay? And you can, in this tree, get the double shove on 4 if you're in a situation where you need a double shove. You've also got those 2 heals that are pretty accessible on 3, and the ability to get a free use of the expensive give me an explosive solution ability as well. I want also, though, to look at his expertise tables. Yes, on his ranged side, his ranged expertise is better, although a crit and a hit for 2 expertise doesn't feel great, actually. Whereas I think that the Vibro Blade table on the close combat side is better because a crit and a damage feels okay. But I want to really look at his defensive tree. On wet work, he has his proper Catan class commando armor, and you'll see this through all the guys in this squad. One thing they have that's really powerful is a crit into a miss on 1 expertise. Really phenomenally good defensive expertise to be like a block and a crit to a miss, right? And then sadly, right, when he's on his rapid fire side, he has much worse defensive expertise. So I feel like unless you are desperate for the shoves or for some reason desperate for a heal, I feel like you almost never want to be in defensive expertise just because you almost never want to be in rapid fire just because you've got much worse defensive expertise, you've got much worse damage potential, and all you're gaining is an extra range dice and the potential to grab some heals and a free activation. So that's my take on Boss. Boss. I'm not a huge fan of Boss, as you probably tell. I do think he's playable. I think he's an enabler for the rest of his squad. I slot him in firmly after Ahsoka, that's her name. I think he's possibly slightly better than Hunter. I could see the argument. I could see the argument that Hunter should be above him. Like, and as a reminder, I'm not saying that he's better in isolation than Beta 1. I'm saying that Anakin Skywalker exists and is superlative, and therefore Vader 1 is quite that far down because of the opportunity cost. But I covered that in my Republic video. Yeah, he's sort of in this awkward zone where, look, I think he's playable. If you love Delta Squad and you want to run clones and that's your thing, I think you can win games with him, right? But I just think those top 5 Republic primaries, right? Anakin, Obi, Cam, Mace, and Ahsoka. Those are the 5 Republic primaries that I'll be looking at and excited to play at the moment in Republic, right? And then I think if you want to run Boss, you can. Yeah, you can do well with him, win games, certainly beat me with him, but he just doesn't set my world on fire. And I think the only way that you're running him, the only reason that you're running him, is because you're running his box. Now, potentially, someone will turn around and say, "Ah, yes, but he has 9 squad points, and I've got this weird build, because he lets me take a 5 point and then a 4 point." But in Republic, especially, it's much less of an argument because the 3 point supports in Republic generally are really good. Yeah. Let's look at Fixer. So Fixer is a 8 wounds, 4 point cost secondary. He has a tactic. Grab yourself some Bacta Trooper. At the start of this unit's activation, choose an allied clone trooper character. The chosen character may heal and dash. Really, really good. Really excellent ability on your secondary. So you get to dash somebody anywhere on the board, no range requirement. They also get a heal, right? And it's free and it always will because of tactics. Even when you're wounded, it's not going to cost force. Fantastic, fantastic ability. The only downside it has is it is limited to clone troopers. So, obviously, if you're running like 2 Jedi primaries, you won't be able to dash those, and that is an advantage that other characters like Rex have, where they can choose to dash one of your Jedi. So there is that, but he's got a free heal and dash for most of your list, most probably, right? So I think it's still a really good ability, and of course you can use it on yourself because he is an allied clone trooper with himself. Then he has a reaction, Forming Up, Sir. When another allied clone trooper unit makes a move action after all moves have been resolved, you can use this ability. If one or more characters in the unit are within 3, the unit gains a hunker. I think this is really interesting as a hunker aura. I don't think I want to spend a force for this very often once I've been wounded, but in the context of when it's free, it potentially. I mean, first of all, having a hunker is never bad, but then if you're running them in a list with Obi-Wan Kenobi, it becomes really quite exciting, I think, to be able to hand out even more hunkers. I think it's something that Obi-Wan Kenobi really enjoys. He's got another reaction. String him along and we'll mop him up. When an allied clone trooper character makes an attack as part of a combat action, before dice are rolled, you can use this ability. Add 1 dice to the attack roll for each allied Delta squad on the attacking unit that's within 5 in line of sight. So we've seen this kind of ability before quite recently with the aquatic stuff on the Rift Thompson box. It's interesting because if you just run Fixer by himself, he can still pass out a dice to any other clone trooper, and that's really good, right? If you're running Delta Squad together as a squad, then you can pass in 2 dice, right? Or if you get somebody over to the squad so that they're with, but it's not how often is it your kind of whole force blobs up, but it's potentially 3 dice. But I would think of it largely as often going to be 2 dice or 1 dice. It's a really good ability. I don't think you want to get too tied up with this. I think you just want to remember it's there and be like, oh, are you within 3 of a Delta squad, right? I think there's a strong argument here. Again, you can spread. So this ability is enabled by him being This ability is enabled. I was rereading it to double check. This ability is enabled by him being on the field. So if you had in the other squad, say you had him in one squad and Sev and Scorch in the other, they'd both independently be handing out one dice to the other clones in their squad, right? Which is quite nice. Now, one thing that's a little bit annoying about this is because it's so one thing I liked with the Separatist version with Aquatic is that I said that you could run a squad that was like Grievous with Nossa Rai and the Aqua Droids. And that's cool because Nossa Rai and the Aquas can give 2 bonus dice to Grievous. This is locked to the Clone Trooper tag, so you can't, apart from Hunter and Boss, you can't use it to power up any of your other. You can't use it to power up any of your really good like Jedi primaries, sadly. And then finally, Master at Work. You have a well, I'll read it. When determining control of an active objective, a character in the unit is contesting. If there's a tie, the unit's controlling player takes control of the objective. So you have a wins ties unit in Republic, which is a new piece of tech for Republic, and it's almost worth the price of admission for Fixer by itself, right? I think Fixer is really good, like really good. They're all solid, and even just running him by himself with no other Delta squads, and you're like, oh, well, I'm not getting the most value out of stringing him along. Yeah, true, but you're still getting to pass out a whole extra dice. His stance card, he can do 7 damage, which isn't the most. Okay, fine. He has the ability to get 4 damage on 3, which is kind of the benchmark, which is nice. He's got a shove on 1 or a shove on 2, but he can't have more than 1 shove, so he can go along the bottom row and access a bunch of heals, which is interesting. If he full trees, he gets a repo. I didn't say why is his armor so much better than Boss. I meant why is his armor so much better than Boss in Boss's annoying rapid fire stance where his armor's pants. Obviously, his armor's not better than his Boss's armor in his decent stance. But it's just worth noting that he always has the ability, the Delta Squad ability, to cancel or to wind a crit down. It is only a crit to a hit and not, as Boss has, a crit to a miss. But it's still a really good ability to have on 1 expertise. I think it's really powerful. So he's not the biggest damage output fella, but he's just got a lot of really good abilities. I think he's a really, really good secondary, and I kind of think he's 3rd best in faction, maybe 2nd best in faction. I think Rex is still the top, and then Fixer and Snips and Fixer, I don't know. I'm only ranking the 4 costs. Obviously, you've also got Shakti. She's pretty much an auto-take in most public lists. But I've not chosen to rank the 5s in there, okay, because obviously they should all be better than the 4s, although there's an argument that Nadar Veb isn't, but he should be. I think Gar now have 3 really, really good 4-cost secondaries, right? So Rex, Snips, and Fixer, I think, are all kind of A tier, if you like. Really, really, you really potentially want to use all of them. Or, well, one thing that I think is exciting about Fixer was if you had a Premier list, say, with Snips in it, and then you can potentially you potentially don't have to feel like you have to use Snips, and therefore you open up the potential for taking primary Ahsoka, who I think is really good. Zimbad keeps doing really well with primary Ahsoka. I think primary Ahsoka is really very, very good. And so one of the only arguments, and indeed one of the only reasons that I had primary Ahsoka so far down was because of the opportunity cost of not being able to take Snips. I do think she's better than Mace in a vacuum, but I try never to judge things in that vacuum, right? So yeah, I think Fixer's really good. He's really exciting for what he does to the Republic list building scenario. And then we got to Sev and Scorch. So Sev and Scorch are a 5-cost support. So the first 5-cost support for Republic. They do only have 8 health, but just to skip to the end, they have protection. on an objective and steadfast. So 8 with protection is pretty good. Let's read. So they had a tactic which isn't necessarily normal for a support unit. Point me at the enemy and stay out of my way. At the start of this unit's activation, each character in this unit can dash towards an enemy character. Fantastic. The whole unit always gets a free dash. Yes. Next ability is yes, more explosives cost a force. Choose an enemy unit within 3. Roll 5 attack dice. The chosen unit suffers a damage for each expertise in the roll. And if they suffer a damage, 1 or more damage, they gain a strain. I don't love this ability. Very situational. Sometimes you'll look at it and go, oh, it's worth seeing if I get anything for my 1 force. Often you'll spend 1 force and get nothing. Bosk has this on a grenade, but like Bosk costs 3 and Bosk gets to dash. And so with Bosk, you're like, well, I'm paying a force for a dash, and then I'm getting a kind of exploding thing just for extras. This is just the exploding thing. Now, granted, this explosion thing will give you strain if you get something through, which is nice, but this is sometimes food, I think. This is a desperation play for when you end up with something left alive on a couple of wounds. You can go, oh yeah, I've got this, let's do that. I don't think it's a great ability. Rule 17, always make sure they're dead, pay a force. After another allied Galactic Republic character within 3 makes combat action, this unit may use this ability. Choose a character in this unit. The chosen character can dash, and if it does, it can make a 5 dice attack, targeting one of the same enemy characters within range and line of sight. Wow. Well, this is a better investment of our force, isn't it? This is a trigger. Any of your Galactic Republic stuff, not just other clones, any of your Galactic Republic stuff within 3 does something, and if they just whiff slightly and just don't manage to take something out, okay, spend a force and get a 5 dice with one of your supporting characters. Absolutely great, right? Yeah, okay, it's slightly limited in that range 3 is very close, okay? But there's lots of layouts where you end up with a big scrum in the middle, right? Or I often end up with a big scrum on one side or the other, where there's going to be multiple people all dancing around a point, and just having these guys, they could even be wounded, right? And having these guys just they go, oh, I just missed out on wounding him. Cool, I'll spend a force. Whether they're wounded, it will be 2 force, but even so, it's probably worth it. And do a dash to 5 dice. Brilliant. And then, as I already read, protection and steadfast on an objective with the 2-body support is superb. Superb. Stances are interesting. So they got 2 totally separate trees representing Sev and Scorch. Now, I've not played this game, so I don't know whether one is very Sev-like and one is very Scorch-like. Okay, so the top row gives you front-loaded damage, right? So you got 4 damage on 3 there. And the bottom line gives you a front-loaded push with the possibility of a second push on 3. And the damage 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The bottom one gives you an extra point of damage. Climb in your defensive tree is interesting, but like, look, you've got crit mitigation in your on 1 expertise for defense again, which is really good. I don't love the expertise tables. I mean, I am warming now to getting, because there's a lot more crit mitigation in the game. So I'm warming to, 2 hits on 1 expertise feels quite good. 2 hits on 3 expertise in combat feels quite bad. So it all depends on where you end up at. I'm not blown away by the tables, but they exist, right? They exist. So I'm not ranked those because of their 5 cost. Let's just talk about a couple of lists. So I think the most obvious list is Batch Delta, right? I think that works perfectly well. I think if you like those kinds, if you want to play all clones, I think you can. I think you'll have a lovely time. I don't think it will suck. I think it will feel powerful. It will do stuff. There will be combos. Do I think it is the best list that you can craft out of Galactic Republic? No. All right. But if you love clones and if you love that part of the lore, then you can totally run that list. Yeah, you can swap Wrecker for Crosshair if that's what you want to do. Your choice. Page your money, takes choice. I like Wrecker in the full cloak. Crosshair's great, don't get me wrong, and Crosshair's another 4-point that you can splash into other lists here, there, and everywhere and give yourself something really interesting. I think Wrecker, especially running a full clones, is just fun. Yeah. Then what I think is probably a better list is to run, again, Delta Squad, but with Obi and Rex, and then whichever 4-point Republic support you like. Wolfpack, Commandos, 212. I think the real clever Dans are liking the 212 at the moment because they're easy to full tree with, and their full tree is like 6 damage, which is pretty good. I like the Commandos. You might like the Wolfpack. I think that's something Seasoned Republic players will know what they prefer in that slot of 4-point clone support, right? But apart from that, which is debatable, you can put anything there. I think with Obi and Rex with Delta is a really good list. And then a Premier list that I find particularly interesting, which is one that I think my wife's going to take a version of this list to the GT that we're both going to in August, actually. You have been given another really good 4-point support. So like I said, this now frees me up from feeling like you have to run snips, and therefore you can take Ahsoka Tano Jedi No More. So I like this. So the idea of this Premier list is that it is potentially Anakin Anchor, right? So obviously the left-hand side is just Kamakin, which is like the current meta hotness list. But the right-hand side is really where we've done interesting stuff. So if you want a really robust, like stubborn, hard to move, but still powerful with 2 powerful Jedi in it, you can go the Anakin Obi list there. I think it's really good. I think Fixer and Rex together gives you a lot, and then you can put in whatever. Again, I've put the Wolfpack in there because I wanted to be like, hey, you'd never normally take the Wolfpack with Obi-Wan, but now with a Hunker Aura, maybe you will. But you could take 212 there as well. That's probably more normal, sure. Or the Commandos, whatever you prefer, right in that slot. The rest I'm pretty nailed on with. And then the Ahsoka squad. So if your opponent in your tournament has taken Never Tell Me the Odds, then you go, cool, I'm bringing Ahsoka with Pons and Sev and Scorch. And now Sev and Scorch are starting the game halfway up the board. Right? So not only do they have the opportunity to start on that awkward objective that you sometimes can't start on with Never Tell, but also your opponent just has to answer the question of how are you going to punish me for putting these really powerful characters this far forwards with Pons, which I think is a really good little combination. And then Ahsoka doesn't really do anything for the rest of them. She just goes off and does her own thing. But she's good at that, and she's fine at doing that as well. So there's my little idea for a Premier list that I think showcases, for me, the 2 parts of this box that are more exciting than the actual primary. Big fan of the support and the secondary. Final thoughts. I'm aware that other people on the internet are higher on Boss than I am. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, no, he's the next Iden, he's this, he's that, and the other. To me, he is the least interesting part of the box. What would the point be of making my own YouTube content if I just echo chambered what everyone else had already said? But there you are. I think the box is really good. And if you want to run one of the more simple lists that I had at the top, which is just this box plus something else, because you really like Delta Squad, I think you can do that and you will have a lovely time, right? So I'm not dunking on them at all. I'm just excited about different bits to the things other people are excited about. Do you totally disagree about anything? Let me know in the comments. I'm always ears. Do you have any great ideas for lists that feature the Delta Squad box that I didn't cover? Like, I totally missed a really cool combo. Do subscribe, comment, like, etc. Consider joining the Discord. All these things. And I want to say a big thank you to all my members, but especially to Alex, who subscribed at the highest tier. So thank you, Alex. You get my special personal thanks every single video. All right, guys, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you again next time. Cheery, 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 cheery. Bye. Bye, 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 bye.